Hello friends, did you see a picture of a fat lady on the internet? And she looked happy? And then you felt angry and confused? Well, have I got the sort of movie just for you.
I dreamt last night the moon was so bright it melted the walls away.
Last year, in 2019, a guy calling himself a filmmaker named Connor Luke Simpson released a video called Fat-topia on Amazon Prime. He claims that this video is a neutral and even-handed investigation into the fat acceptance movement, and that's not true at all. Instead, what Connor has done is make an extremely sloppy piece of propaganda against a group of people that are already widely misunderstood and disliked. It was easy for him to exploit existing social prejudices against fat people to make a series of claims about fat activists without anyone ever questioning if those claims are even true. Hi, my name is Allie, and this is Okay to Be Fat, because it is okay to be fat. I am a fat activist. I looked into Connor Luke Simpson's claims from Fat-topia about himself and about the interactions that he says that he had with fat activists. And here's what I found.
Ooh, thank you. It sounds very exciting. May I come just as I am?
Fat-topia. It's a movie, sort of. I'm going to read you the description of Fat-topia with some editing from Amazon Prime, which is where it is located. In an era of activism, some guy, Connor Luke Simpson, enters the world of fat acceptance.
How did you get in here anyway?
A provocative social movement that is seeking to change the negative perception of fat people. Is everything we know about fat people wrong? Or will this movement just become a footnote in the history books? According to Connor Luke Simpson, Fat-topia is a real documentary into the fat acceptance movement. I disagree.
It's false. No way.
I think it is a barely passable YouTube video that has been put on Amazon Prime because you can put pretty much anything on Amazon.
What do you mean that know-how look?
I would say that Fat-topia is, it's just a mess. It's disjointed, it has no narrative structure, it's confusing when it isn't just misleading or outright made up. Somehow it manages to be both a tedious, padded out slog, while also not giving itself enough time to provide the information you would need to know who any of these people are. It kind of operates like fan fiction. Where if you're writing fan fiction, you just assume everyone knows who the central players are, so you don't have to give any explanation as to what's going on. But people who are not familiar with the property that the fan fiction is referencing have no idea what you're talking about.
Can't you hear my heartbeat, so I can't let you go. Want you in my life.
I would say Fat-topia operates in much the same way, and that the target audience for it is definitely not fat activists. It is instead the fitness weirdo community.
Without you, it's hard to survive.
So what do I mean when I say fitness weirdos? There are people who are into fitness. There are people who love the gym. And then there are the people who are so threatened by the idea that anyone would not have getting swole as their top life priority that they follow fat activists around the internet screaming at them. You will probably find a bunch of them in the comments of this video.
Some of the people watching this video are probably not familiar with fat activism. Hi, hello, welcome. So let me just explain quickly what I'm not going to do. This video is strictly talking about and debunking Fat-topia as a piece. I've already made a bunch of videos about the science behind fat activism, about statistics, and I will link a bunch of them in the notes. So if you have questions about that, I'm gonna direct you that way because that's not what we're talking about here. Considering that people do oftentimes have these questions, I'll just direct you over to those links and you can take a look. All of the videos are completely sourced in the notes and there's linked transcripts if you'd like to take a look at those. So that's not the discussion that I want to have with this. However, there's a couple of statistics that come up in Fat-topia that I did take a look into live on Twitch stream. So I'll also link those streams and you can watch me research these claims in real time. So the first claim, 2.8 million die each year as a result of being fat, which is listed as going back to the WHO. I did look into this number. There is no paper that this number is being tied back to. This is not a real number. There's also the NHS number. 1 in every 13 deaths in Europe is caused by being fat. This also ties back to a debunked paper. So this is also not a real number. But what I think is really interesting, besides the fact that these numbers are not factually tied back to anything, is that the same numbers, 2.8 million deaths and 1 in every 13 deaths in Europe, are also tied back through different papers to the amount of people who die every year from alcohol. And whether or not you consider those numbers to be good or not, but it does raise the question, if Connor Luke Simpson is so concerned and his point of making Fat-topia is that he saw these scary numbers and he's just so concerned about these death numbers, then why is it that he's decided to make this video called Fat-topia specifically about fat activism and fat people, but he didn't make Beer-topia? Because you could take the same numbers and make them be about alcohol.
Beer. Sparkling. Golden. Pure. Refreshing.
And yet we have this screams and wailing and rending of garments over one set of numbers and a complete lack of attention over another. Why would that be? Because it's a lot easier, based on existing social prejudices, to get people angry and upset about numbers that are supposed to be about fat people than it is to get people angry and upset about numbers that are supposed to be about alcohol usage. If we're just talking about numbers here, then Connor should be advocating for all the bars in the UK to close, and yet somehow he's not. And I think that's really interesting. An important thing to keep in mind about Fat-topia is that Connor marketed it with this explosive interview with a real fat activist.
Privilege, privilege, privilege. Right, I think I'm done.
And this interview is not real. It is fake. He faked it. It is my non-legally actionable opinion that this is fake as hell. Can I 100% prove that this is fake? No, I can't do that. I'm 98 to 99% sure that it's fake. And what I'm gonna do with this video is build a case for that, and then you can decide for yourself. And as for the rest of it, as Connor would say himself,
but if you thought something was completely and utterly wrong, wouldn't you ridicule it too?
I guess maybe I would, buddy. I guess maybe I would. I'm going to be using this photo of Nicolas Cage making a weird face to cover up the images of people who did not agree to be in Fat-topia in the first place. I've tried to cut around images of people who did not agree to be in this video, but when I can't cut them out completely, Nick Cage. The only person that I really can't do that with is Tess Holliday. So, who is Tess Holliday? Tess Holliday is an American plus-size model. She won a model contest for the plus-size clothing brand Torrid, and she's worked for the following companies: Domino Dollhouse, Benefit Cosmetics, Monif C, H&M, Additionelle, Yours Clothing, as well as others. She's also appeared in Marie Claire UK, Vogue Italia, and People magazine, as well as Cosmopolitan UK. She is not the first fat woman to walk a catwalk or be on a magazine cover, but she's had a lot of success in her career as a fat model. So why is this important? Because historically, plus-size clothing has been modeled by women who don't wear plus sizes. That is not helpful when you are trying to decide if you want to purchase a piece of clothing.
Since it's just a dream and involves no money, which one would you like me to buy you, honey?
Because the other problem is that plus size clothing is not available in physical stores for fat people who want to wear feminine clothing to try it on. So we are really limited to going on what things look like in the photos, and then the photos are of people who aren't even big enough to wear the clothes that we're being offered to buy. And so having someone who is a size of someone who would be wearing these clothes is, I mean, it shouldn't be a big deal, but it is. It is a big deal because when you see someone who is more approximately your size, then you have a better idea of what the clothing might look like on you. Wild, I know, but that's what they've been doing for years. So if you don't wear plus size clothing, you might not know that, but it is actually a really big deal. Here's the part where I have to tell you that I was personally asked to be in Fat-topia by Connor Luke Simpson. I asked him a couple of questions, did some basic Googling, and said, no, I do not want to do this. But Connor, it seems like you really wanted attention from a fat activist, so here I am giving you all my attention. I hope that you like it, but I suspect that you won't. Also, and I shouldn't have to say this, but I'm going to say this because it's the internet, no one should attack or harass this guy. You and I will not be chill pals together if you bother this guy. If Connor Luke Simpson wants to be the rational king of Turd Mountain, like fine, he can stay up there. Whatever. Don't you harass people though. And I do mean that. The filmmaking that Connor Luke Simpson reminds me of the most is the works of Neil Breen. If you're not familiar with Neil Breen, you should get familiar with Neil Breen. He is kind of a bad person who makes funny bad movies. And for my money, the best one is I Am Here, ... now. But Fateful Findings, you can watch on Amazon Prime, just like Fat-topia. Connor is like if Neil Breen, instead of being obsessed with portraying himself as an alien robot genius from space, what if Neil Breen instead spent all his free time on Reddit reading the Fat Chicks Are Gross subreddit, and then he decided to make a documentary about how he personally is the only one who can decide if fat activism should exist or not.
Finding out whether their cause is legitimate, whether it's moral.
Buddy, we do not need your permission.
So in order to approximate my personal experience of watching Fat-topia, I've cut together some Neil Breen footage and some stuff from Fat-topia. And so you can approximate the experience of watching Fat-topia without actually having to watch Fat-topia. But if you want to watch it, I don't care.
My name is Cade. I have an identical twin brother, Kel. Then one day it all changed.
Programmable virtual reality, the corrupt version.
A fat acceptance movement for those who inhabit fat echo chambers. And I'm actually kind of shocked at the response from some of the fat activists.
Let's have a drink. Let's have a drink.
Leave me alone.
Let's have a drink. I'll meet you back here at 8 o'clock. Kuz's biological mutant warfare plans must be stopped. Justice is served. I'll be right here.
So basically, this is what it was like, except for it's a lot longer and it's more boring. And then I watched his extremely long vlogs because it's quarantine and apparently I hate myself. So, buckle in. We're getting ready to go for a ride together.
One of the big framing issues that Connor brings to how he has put together Fat-topia is his contention that no one in fat activism would talk to him.
A few months ago I reached out to you concerning a fat acceptance documentary I'm working on.
That no one in fat acceptance or body positive, it was just a bunch of super unreasonable, mean meanies who shut him out.
I would be extremely grateful to have a couple minutes of your time to ask you a few questions and let you explain why you think fat acceptance is so important.
And he was just trying to make a movie. So sad.
I sincerely hope that we can speak in order to portray the fat acceptance movement in the most truthful and accurate way possible.
How could they do this to him, the rational, reasonable man?
3 of the 5 activists decided to block me with no response.
But here's the thing, people did talk to him because they're in his movie. There are people in his movie who talk to him. So I find that kind of wild. And a comment, I think, on the power of editing and framing.
It's important for me to state that I don't support or condone fat shaming or bullying of any kind.
In that he is able to push forward this contention that no one would speak to him in a movie where he repeatedly speaks to people who he said wouldn't talk to him. And then the thing that's especially wild to me is that none of the people that I have seen talk about this movie, none of the people that I have shown it to, I am so sorry. Nobody seems to bring up this like inherently contradictory fact that you can't say that no one talk to you because you talk to them. They talk to you. People talk to you on Skype. What the hell? That's okay. So he just says no one talked to him.
Here is the warmth of coral.
Since Connor seems to just be utterly bewildered that no one wanted to talk to him. Oh, I can show you exactly why people didn't want to talk to him. In this clip, Connor is speaking to a girl named Felicia. He has photographs of her as a fat child after she's told him that she was relentlessly bullied for her size. And then he takes that and does this.
And I could understand why someone like Felicia, who suffered years of bullying, would have a strong desire to redefine a word that had tortured her for so long. Were there negative stereotypes attached to the word? Sure. But surely there must be more to it than that. I mean, why else was it a negative word? I got it. Fat can kill you.
Connor did this with this girl's personal heartfelt story so he can cut to his extremely tired and hacky music cue. And then he spends the entire movie disclaiming that he's against bullying. What do you think that just was? What was that? That was bullying. You bullied her. It's cruel. It's cheap. It's lazy. And the thing is, Connor seemed like, to me, just from the interactions that I had with him and looking him up a little bit online, he seemed like the kind of guy who would do this. And then it turned out that he was. This is why people didn't want to talk to you, because you did this, which is the thing that so many people like you do. It seems astonishing that after clipping this part into your video that you would then wander around with this like face on your face like, I don't know. I don't know why they won't talk to me. It's a mysterious mystery that no one can explain. Are you serious? He literally filmed himself asking this girl a question and then rolling his eyes at the answer. And then he put that in the movie. A lot of fat activists have been doing this a really long time. And the thing is that the people who bother us online have like 4 tactics that they use because it's basically all the same stuff. I haven't heard anything new in years. So you think you're being slick, but I've seen this like a million billion times before. So it seems unreasonable to you because you think that I am buying into your facade of even-handedness, but it's not a very good facade. Like, it's not that hard to tell when someone's asking you a legitimate question versus when they're doing what you are doing. It's like when a toddler has chocolate all over their face and then they say that they're not eating the chocolate. Like, it's not that hard to tell. If you're thinking that it's not fair for me to say that his willingness to look at both sides and even-handedness is not real, well...
I guess my film was anti-fat acceptance.
I mean, he said it himself. So it seems like to me that the people who didn't want to talk to you were correct because you were not truthful in the way that you approached us. You did not represent yourself as someone who was going to be making an anti-fat acceptance documentary or fake documentary. So we're already starting from a baseline basis of deception in the way that you approached people. This next part is almost unbelievable. Connor was apparently astonished that Tess Holliday didn't get back in touch with him about his janky video after he emailed her.
You know, I reached out to Tess Holliday as soon as I could. And I said to Tess Holliday, you know what, let's talk about this. Let's talk about the cover.
Color, style, comfort, utility, and convenience.
Connor, buddy, you know Tess Holliday is famous, right? She's famous. Like, if I emailed someone who was famous in your country, I don't know, who is famous in England? Like, if I emailed Posh Spice and her husband, and then I was all pouty and disappointed that I didn't get a personal reply back, you know that would be weird, right? Did you really think that a famous model who is busy working and having a life was going to pause all that to get on Skype with some random guy for a both sides look at if she should be allowed to have her job? Why would she do that? Like, why? Why would she ever do that? Don't you see that it's weird that you thought that she would?
Recreation, fun, color, style, comfort, utility, and convenience.
Britain's greatest national treasure.
Peace.
But these adjustable ball stops...
She continues to want to be celebrated.
Maybe she just wants to do her job, and you all are the ones who are being extremely mad and weird about it.
Originally there was going to be another scene where I went around to the public and said, you know, what do you think of this? And got their perspective. Do they think it's empowering? Do they think it's dangerous?
Empowering or dangerous, those are your only two options. Tess Holliday can't just be a model. She can't just have the career she wants. She has to be the subject of a global conversation, whether she wants that or not.
I didn't expect it to go global and for everyone to be talking about it.
She has to personally stand in for all fat people and all of fat activism and be a living example of the moral panic that is the so-called obesity epidemic. That's why we don't want to talk to you. Jeez. So much of Fat-topia, the fake documentary, is watching Connor make Skype calls and then watching him scroll ever so slowly through Instagram. But he's also using fake footage that he staged without making it clear within the video that the footage isn't real. And maybe you're thinking, aw, people stage footage in documentaries all the time. It's called a reenactment. Okay, but generally when people find out that footage is staged but not disclosed as a reenactment within the film, people who watch it generally feel misled and they tend not to like that. Using a consistent visual language to indicate that footage in a documentary is intended to be a reenactment and was not filmed while it was happening is a thing Connor could have done really easily. There's a bunch of ways to do that. Here's some examples. Use a text indicator Add a special border that you don't use with other footage. Change the color of the reenactment footage to not be the same color as the rest of your footage. And I'm sure there's a bunch more. Connor doesn't use any of these techniques. I don't know why. Is this a deliberate attempt to deceive? Is it just incompetence? I don't know. I have no idea. I need to show you Connor's footage of a historical fat activism event called the Fat-In. I'll explain to you some of the context of the event, which Connor absolutely does not do. Like everything else in Fat-topia, it is just mashed in together with this series of mashed up, slapped together pile of events, half of which are him complaining that people were mean to him on an internet. But let's take a look.
We are amid a global epidemic. A global epidemic.
A global epidemic.
We are amid a global epidemic.
Oh, that's weird. How did that get in there? That's so weird. The beginning of that, it just got away from me. It slipped out of my hands. It's so weird. I don't even know what happened.
Yet some don't necessarily choose to look at it that way.
1050 WA10, New York.
The date is June 4th, 1967, and boy do I have news for you. It looks like Central Park is occupied today by around 500 fat protesters celebrating obesity. They are calling it the Fat-In, and people can be seen eating ice cream, holding signs, and burning exercise books.
The Fat-In was the idea of a radio host named Steve Post. It was in the style of other 1960s counterculture be-in type events.
And in so doing, refutes the order and discipline of the establishment.
Part performance art, part protest, partly a way to get attention for Steve Post's radio station, WBAI, which it definitely did. But it wasn't just a radio stunt, although that was a big part of it.
Launch the marble!
Steve Post had been a fat kid, and he came up with the idea of the Fat-In after reading an article in the New York Times Magazine about the ways that fat kids struggle socially. And because it was the 1960s, he expressed his groovy thoughts through protest and performance art, and who even knows how sincere it was even supposed to be. Radio stunt for the radio, because you couldn't vlog back then. This was like 9 entire years before YouTube was even invented. And Connor should know all this. It's on pages 108 through 110 of this book that he's holding. Buddy, you gotta read the book, not just hold it close to your face. Just a little hint there. More importantly for our purposes, there's no video footage of this event. Connor made this footage up. Where this gets murkier for me is that he credited the voice actor from this section.
Hello, New York City!
In the credits of Fat-topia, but not as a voice actor. This person got lumped in with everyone else as featured. You'd have to go to IMDb to find out that this person was actually a voice actor. Since we're talking about fake footage, I'm just gonna go ahead and put these here. So here, Connor cosplays being on the radio. As far as I can tell, Connor has not been on the radio, because if he had been on the radio, there should be some kind of promo somewhere that you could find for this radio appearance, which does not exist. So Connor's pretending to be on the radio. I just think that's weird. Taking the weirdness up to another level, we have all these flyers that Connor had made of himself that he put up around wherever he lives. And pretended like, oh, so mean. These activists tracked me down and got my picture. How could they do this to me? Okay, so obviously you did this to yourself. Where would fat activists have gotten a series of photos of you making real chucklehead faces? And then what? We bought a ticket to come over to England to put up posters of you that don't even include your name? This is a baffling situation to me. What an astonishing thing to have done. And when I was thinking about this bit with the flyers that are fake, I thought to myself, what an amazing trip to the copy shop to make copies. And I feel like that might have gone a little bit something like this.
Hi, welcome to the copy stop. Can I help you? Hello. Can you please make 50 copies of this? It's very important. Isn't that you? Is that a picture of you? 50 copies, please. I need to put these up all over my town. You're gonna put these up around your town? Like this town? But it's got your face on it, and it says that you're mean and weird. It's for my documentary. Here I am in England. We've got the queen on the money. You know what? Fine. Give it to me. I'm sorry I asked.
There's things that I know, there's things that I suspect, there's things that I can prove, and there's things that I don't know and can't know. I suspect that Connor has used deceptive editing in order to make some of his Fat-topia interview subjects, specifically the ones who are pro-fat acceptance, look silly or ridiculous, or to cut out genuine issues that they may or may not have brought up. But the thing is, I don't have his footage, so I can't prove that. But what I do know is that he has used a couple of news clips where I was able to find the unedited footage. And in these cases, he is using editing in a deceptive way. I'm going to go ahead and show you what I think is the worst example. From a 1978 60 Minutes report on a NAFA convention. Connor seems to especially like listening to fat people list negative stereotypes about ourselves and the ways that people think that we're bad, like the specific ways. And I don't particularly love that, so I'm just gonna clip that part out. But he left in a part where a woman says that most people hate fat people. A woman listing negative stereotypes about fat people because, like, my God, you can't cut that. And then this part at the end.
Thin people always have a good sense of humor. Fat people are jolly.
What happened?
I don't quite know.
So if we take a look at what Connor decided to leave out when he edited down this 60 Minutes clip, it'll probably give us an idea of his intentions and framing. What is the purpose of Fat-topia? I believe the editing can show us that. I'm just gonna start with the Mike Wallace intro because it's classic and I like it.
150 fat people, most of them female, from all across the country, come together in a kind of consciousness-raising session.
So Connor's left out an entire part where two doctors refute the entire premise of his video. So that's deception.
Diets are numerous, and if any of them worked, there would be no need for so many new cures, declares Dr. George Bray, professor of medicine at UCLA. And Dr. Philip White, director of nutrition for the AMA, says, more dollars are spent on worthless cures for obesity than for all medical research combined.
I also think it's very telling that one of the parts that he leaves out is a very clear and factual account of job discrimination due to fat phobia. So let's take a look at that.
Another problem. Various surveys have shown that fat people pay a penalty in the job market. They don't get jobs as easily, they don't advance as quickly, and they're not paid as well as their thinner counterparts.
I was looking for another job. I went to a representative on the Hill that had an opening as an aide. And I went there, I went for the job, I got back to the office, he called my boss. He said, Mr. Kelly, I really like Betty. She's got a wild sense of humor. She dresses well. I don't put fat girls in my office.
Then I spoke to that woman's daughter.
Would you hire someone like me?
You know, I'm asking myself this as I have my consciousness raised here today.
I can type 60 words a minute. I can take shorthand. I completed the course at the Washington School for Secretaries. I'm just as qualified as any other student there.
I'll bet you.
Weighing 100 pounds. Would you discriminate against me and hire another girl because I'm heavy?
That's a very good question.
And now clarity begins to descend upon us. And the reason why Fat-topia exists becomes clear. Connor is invested in a narrative that frames fat activism as frivolous and worthless, as something that doesn't need to exist because it is focused solely on unimportant issues, according to him.
Thin people always have a good sense of humor. Fat people are jolly.
Oh my God, can you believe these people? This is what they have to complain about? That's not real activism. I'm the one who gets to decide. The thing is, he also had this footage.
Various surveys have shown that fat people pay a penalty in the job market.
And he left it out on purpose. Because that's what editing is. Choosing what to leave in and choosing what to take out and making a purposeful decision. So he decided to leave in something that he framed as frivolous, and then he left out something to bolster a fake narrative in his fake documentary. And he serves that narrative by removing any information that would contradict it. Once he's taken that information out, then he pretends like it doesn't exist. That's deceptive. We're setting up a pattern of being deceptive here. Let's go back even a little bit further, just to contextualize this framing issue a little bit more. Let's go back to the beginning shot of Fat-topia, and we'll take a look at these two definitions that he shows. Both of them are from Urban Dictionary, which, that's not a good source, Connor. Urban Dictionary is not a legitimate source for something like this. I mean, he doesn't cite that they're from Urban Dictionary. He sets up that fat phobia doesn't exist by buying into and showing this definition that it is a attempt to capitalize on growing awareness of actual oppression, while he has footage that he deleted from this clip specifically discussing job discrimination that was a problem in the 70s and is still a problem today.
Would you discriminate against me and hire another girl because I'm heavy?
That's a very good question.
Mike Wallace in this clip does not rush to reassure this girl that he wouldn't discriminate against her because of her size. He doesn't do that. It's very striking to me because I think today most people would rush to pretend like they would never discriminate in this way, while they absolutely do.
If we only had these now. No, but we do.
It is legal in most states to discriminate against people openly because they are fat, and there's no legal recourse. So attempts to equate finding clothing to denial of basic civil rights, I mean, if the right to not be discriminated against at your job, if that's not a basic civil right, I don't know what definition is being used. This is a pretty common tactic from the fitness weirdos, etc., that they want to define what discrimination is in such a way that it includes homophobia as discrimination.
Or the attitude towards those who identify as LGBT.
Because I guess they've decided they can't be openly homophobic. We want to include homophobia, but we want to exclude fat phobia. So that's why the being forbidden to marry is on this list. Connor and people like him think they're the ones who get to decide what counts as real discrimination.
Also, some fat people are queer too. Shocking, I know.
Can we also just put to rest the idea that not being able to find clothes is some kind of nothing issue? I don't even think that people who don't have to wear plus or extended sizes can imagine the kinds of problems that it presents to not be able to get clothes. Because clothes for you are everywhere. Have you ever tried living without clothes or without the right clothes for the spaces that you need to be in? It is actually a real problem. It's not, in my opinion, the most important problem, but that doesn't mean it's a fake problem.
For use as part of a talking picture, the sound to accompany the photographed action.
I could make an extremely long video that just discussed the editing issues in Fat-topia, because the entire video is made up of editing problems. But we need to move on to other parts and other topics and other fake things. Before we move on, I have to show you the transition out of the 60 minutes clip.
Thin people always have a good sense of humor. Fat people are jolly.
When I first saw this, my jaw hit the floor. I was not really that shocked by anything that Connor did, except for his usage of the image and words of Dr. Martin Luther King. I was not expecting to see this. I honestly don't even know where to begin on how to address this, except to say that you should not have done this. And if you don't understand, Connor, why you shouldn't have done this, I don't know how in a YouTube video to explain that to you. It seems to have made Connor really upset that people didn't want to talk to him, or that he couldn't have access to everyone that he wanted to talk to, or I guess that people aren't required to talk to him just because he wants them to. So he does a lot of just reading out loud, word for word, messages from people who didn't want to talk to him, like, look at this. This person didn't want to talk to me, and it's so mean. So in this clip, he's doing that. He's reading a post in a super serious man tone. I've cut the audio down on this because I don't want to slow my video down and screw up my pacing. I mean, Connor doesn't seem to mind doing that. He wants to really take his time with every ponderous syllable, but here's the end of the clip. We'll show the transition that he uses.
But his intentions and his vision are toxic.
I have a dream.
Once again, it's not okay that you did this. You should not be using clips of Dr. King to score points in an internet fight with people that you are mad at. It's pretty gross, actually. It's just gross that you did this. You shouldn't have done it. And it's weird that you thought this was gonna be okay. That's it. I don't know what else to say. One of Connor's main selling points when he was marketing Fat-topia, besides this super fake interview, one of the other main selling points that he had was that everyone called him a Nazi.
I don't want to play the victim again, but like when people say, you're a Nazi and all this sort of stuff.
It was so mean, it was so unfair, and it's not even true.
Fat-topia, when people are like, you know, he's a racist, he's alt-right, he's a Nazi, people go in and watch a film and think, you know what, they're wrong, and then they actually talk about the film, you know.
So, did that happen? Let's take a look and find out. Here's the thing about publicly making a claim that you've been slandered by being called a Nazi. People can check that. And so it turns out that's not true. I looked on Google, I looked on Twitter, I looked on Facebook, I looked on Instagram, and as far as I can tell, the only person linking Connor's name with the word Nazi is Connor when he makes the claim that people called him a Nazi. Because I just can't find this anywhere. It just doesn't seem to exist. If people called you a Nazi or were mean to you in private messages or closed Facebook groups, that's not exactly the reputational damage to your reputation that you seem so very worked up about. So we're just gonna have to call this not true. We're gonna give it 17 million Pinocchio noses because this did not happen.
What a fib.
In his video, Connor claims that all the fat activists called his Fat Activism cringe compilation guy a Nazi and couldn't find that either, so it seems like you just made this up.
Luckily that sort of worked into my marketing campaign in a way. They sort of killed that.
Because you didn't have anything else. All of this foo-for-raw in the service of, they really called me a Nazi, y'all. They really did. And when it comes time to show it, all he has is himself typing the word Nazi into a Word document.
Roll that beautiful bean footage.
I love this. I love it so much. Before you go thinking, Connor was just trying to keep that person's name confidential. No, he's not. He does not make any effort to keep other people's names confidential. He puts screenshots with unredacted names up constantly. So that's not it. And if you had documentation and proof, this would be the point to produce it. And yet, what is produced is a Word document that someone tippy-tappy types the word word Nazi into. Amazing. If you're so sure someone said this to you in public where it could damage you in some way, who said it? And if someone said it to you privately and you didn't like it, why wouldn't you just block that person and get on with your life? I mean, God knows that's what I'm told to do. When I first looked into this, I keep... Connor is conning me, because every time I look into one of his little claims, I think to myself, this is probably not what he says it is, but surely there must be something at the bottom of this. And like every time, like, no, there's just nothing. I thought I was gonna turn up like someone with 10 followers being like, oh, you're a Nazi. Like, not even that. Nothing. It's wild. Can you imagine making an hour-long fake documentary every time someone was mean to you on the internet? Like, you get in a fight with your aunt's work friend on Facebook. Boom! Hour-long documentary. That would be a lot, I think. I mean, if we must have a fake hour-long documentary about comments on the internet, I mean, I would like to suggest this as a much better alternative. This is a much better narrative than the nothing narrative that you made up. And at least I have a screenshot. There's nothing. Connor conned me again.
A man has fallen into the river in Lego City. Start the new rescue helicopter. Hey! Build the helicopter. And off to the rescue. Prepare the lifeline. Lower the stretcher. And make the rescue.
Oh yeah. Who's ready for some more wild nonsense? Because I am. Of all the discoveries that I have made doing background research for this video, this one, it's still, I mean, I know that it's true, but it still surprises me. Even recording this, I am still like, but surely not. But surely yes. Hang on, I gotta go across the room to say this, because if I do it right here, I'm gonna blow my levels to hell. Oh my god! He made fake Audible ads! Oh my god!
Let's watch and see what makes people like one person and not another.
Connor made fake ads for how am I gonna get through this? Okay, so he made fake ads for his podcast / vlog and inserted them into his otherwise unedited footage. So, okay, so here's the timeline. I don't even know if I'm going to use this part, but the timeline is, I noticed that the interview was obviously fake, and then I decided to look into it more, and then I started prepping to potentially make a video. Part of that prep work was to listen to Connor's adjacent media, especially the stuff that's promoting Fat-topia, and then I'm listening along, and I hear him go into an ad for Audible, and I think to myself, wow, that's strange. I didn't know that Connor had enough of an audience to have attracted a sponsor like Audible. So I listen, and then I think to myself, oh, this doesn't sound right. Is this? Wait a minute. And then I listen to it again, and then I'm like, is this fake? Let me just play Connor's ad for you. I'm just gonna shorten it a little bit because I don't want it to be boring.
Audible. So what is Audible? There's so many great things on there at the moment. Handmaid's Tale, which is very popular. Keep trying to, support by checking out Audible. Now let's get back to the podcast.
Now I will play for you a selection of Audible ads I've collected from throughout the internet, and we'll see together if we can spot the difference.
Or visit audible.com/skillup.
If you go to audible.com/Eddie Burback, where you text Eddie Burback to this number, you get a free audiobook.
Just visit audible.com/Carlin or text Carlin to 500-500 to get started.
Go to audible.com/Lindsay Ellis. That's Lindsay with an A, Ellis with an E and an I.
This video is sponsored by Audible. This is an advertisement for Audible.
One of these things is not like the other. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of YouTube. I have heard a million billion Audible ads, and everyone who does an Audible ad has their own URL. They have their own web address that has something to do with their name or the show that they're doing. They have a vanity URL. So it's audible.com/some name, somebody's name, or a name of a thing. And Connor does not have that. He does not have that. It's not real.
But why do they sometimes laugh for no good reason?
Without the vanity URL, what you are doing is simply advertising the concept of Audible for free. I showed this to a few people and they were like, why would anyone do that? I mean, obviously I don't know for sure, but the only thing that makes any sense to me is that Connor is LARPing being an influencer. He's putting on an influencer costume that he got at the bootleg Halloween store. And he's like, yep, I'm an influencer. Here's my Audible ad. And it's just like, it does not work that way. That is not how it works. And I mean, it goes to his credibility as a documentarian, quote, a million quotes around that. But you're producing these things that you're calling documentaries while you're making made up advertisements. The only reason why no one's called you out about it yet is I guess no one's paying attention. I don't know. It breaks my brain, because I do okay. I'm not Lindsay Ellis, obviously, but I got a free pair of jeans once. But I'm not trying to pretend like I've got the jeans coupon code for jeans, the concept. Thanks for sponsoring my video, the concept of blue jeans. Maybe you think it's a mistake. It's definitely 100% not a mistake, but let's pretend that we believe that it could be a mistake. Definitely there is not any kind of Audible linkage in the YouTube notes that go with this particular podcast, but okay, maybe it's a mistake. Is it a mistake if he does it twice? He does another fake ad for honey. So I guess let's take a look at that. Once again, I have cut this down for the sake of time and interest.
We're talking about honey. It's free. Yes, download honey today and help support the Teach podcast.
And once again, let's take a look at some real honey ads.
So without further ado, here is the ad that I made for honey. Honey, download it now, it's free! Okay, well, I'm not going to use that. Go to joinhoney.com/Greg. The link will be in my description.
To download honey for the low price of $0, click the link in the description. That's joinhoney.com/Drew.
So get honey for free at joinhoney.com/theread. That is joinhoney.com/theread.
Again, we have the whole vanity URL thing going on in that, it doesn't exist. He doesn't give one because he doesn't have one. In this case, he does have a referral link for honey. You can see this is not a vanity link. This doesn't say Connor, it doesn't say Connor Luke Simpson, it doesn't say the name of his podcast or anything like that. This is just a randomly generated series of characters. So I wanted to see if I could get a randomly generated series of characters honey referral link for myself, and it turns out I can and did. There's a difference between a referral link and a vanity URL that's used for a real ad. Let me show you. So if you take Connor's referral link, put it in, this is the page that it brings you to. If you take my referral link and put it in, it brings you to essentially the same page. It shows you my name instead of his name, but it's essentially exactly the same page. Now, what if we take the link from a real ad and we put that in and see what page it brings us to? Oh, look, it's a completely different page and it looks completely different because this is from a real ad and not a referral link that literally anybody can generate. Let me show you the back end as well, because when you get your referral link, it shows you that This is not even to get money. This is to get honey gold points. And if you get enough honey gold points, then maybe you'll get a $10 gift certificate. But that's not what most people are thinking of when they talk about sponsorship as a indicator of, let's say, influencer relevance. So the honey ads are also fake. So I think we can pretty well say that this is a deliberate mistruth. But if you're still wondering, maybe this could be a double, triple inside out mistake, because I guess maybe some people like giving people like Connor 100 billion benefits of the doubt. So what if he did it a third time? What if he did it a third time? Oh God. He did do it a third time. I realized as I was making this part of the video that I didn't have a screen capture of the honey ad. I went back to grab it and I found another fake ad. This one's for Wix.com.
Connor Luke Simpson. I want to start off by thanking our sponsors, Fat-topia and Wix.com. If you're watching a video version of this podcast, you can head to the description and find the clickable links in which you can watch Fat-topia the movie. It's a great movie. In fact, I can't think of the guy who made it. Oh yeah, that was me.
Did I go and search down a whole bunch of real Wix ads to show you? No, I didn't. Do you know why? Because I made my point. That's why. The point has been made. And I'm not going to waste any more time on this because this guy can make stuff up faster than I can record voiceover to show you why it's fake.
Anything that will get me money.
No one even paid you though, you giant doofus. Christ.
It was a good score.
I keep trying to lock this, but I found another made-up thing today. Connor said he was getting sued because his video got taken down. He never got sued, and his video is back up. The original video that he was scream crying about. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The 3 prongs of the Fat-topia marketing campaign were this fake interview, which is fake. I will show you how. Everyone called him a Nazi, which we looked into that. I don't think so. And 3, that the mean meanies of fat acceptance got his video removed. The thing is, none of these things are true. This video that he cried about how he was going to be sued, you got a DMCA takedown for copyright, and it was apparently adjudicated in your favor because the video is back. So that's not being sued, Connor. That's not what that means. Private eyes are watching you. They see that you're not being sued. People are not getting sued when YouTube takes their videos down. And certainly not when they're taken down and then put back up. I've been sued. And until a certified letter or process server shows up at your house, it's all just talk.
The day of doom is coming.
If you're gonna grift, I guess this is a good one. If you take a look at the original upload of the Fat-topia trailer, which is back up, which is where I got this information from, you can see there's quite a bit of difference between this and the view count of the Fat-topia trailer that was re-uploaded. After the, oh no, they're suing me, I'm gonna get sued. I guess it worked. Wild that nobody checked.
So terrifying.
If I had to hand it to Connor for anything, and I'm really not inclined to, but if I had to, I guess I would give him credit for knowing which made up things his audience was not inclined to check. Because wow. Number 1. So Connor had someone Photoshop him to look like a fat person for the marketing of Fat-topia. It's extremely unclear to me why he did this, but he did. I found this side by side of his original photo with the photoshopped photo, and I've covered up the marketing information because Fat-topia, the next big social movement. Get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? Do you get it? Do. Number 2. So after spending all this time crying big crocodile tears about how Tess Holliday didn't want to be in his video and wah wah blee blee, etc. He credited her as cast in the Amazon Prime app. So she's considered cast. Number 3.
God bless America.
I can't go on with this. I'm American.
Number 4.
Was it a huge step forward in personal acceptance or exploitation by cold capitalists who are essentially glorifying obesity?
Number 5. I like this part a lot. One of his interviewees calls him really fit.
And I've seen pictures of you, you're fit.
And he leaves it in. Number 6. No, wait, I love this part too.
Chronic diseases have skyrocketed.
He timed the rocket to show up when he says skyrocketed. Because it's a rocket. Because it's a rocket. That's why. Number 7. Connor says that since he couldn't get Tess Holliday to talk to him, because why would she? That he decided to talk to another model to get someone in the modeling industry to say what they thought of whether or not Tess Holliday should be allowed to be a model.
Should we put them in the programs? Should we put them on the catwalk? Should we put them on the
The thing is, they don't put those round girls, they don't put them on the catwalk.
So as he's having this conversation, 2 minutes before, he literally shows footage in his B-roll of Tess Holliday walking a catwalk, which he shows multiple times, and which visually undermines his point that she's not allowed to be a model, because there she is clearly being a model.
I don't know what label you would call them, because they're not really. What is she modeling? She can't go and walk down a catwalk. Doesn't represent the plus model or what a plus model exactly is. So why would you then use the word model?
I feel like we had a word for that, but I don't know what it was. If you get your picture taken in order to sell products, and then that's how you make money because that's your job. Oh well, I guess we'll never know. Number 8. So we're back to his podcasts about Fat-topia, and I don't know what to say about this.
Maybe you've grown up in a family environment where white men have been really terrible to your family and all that sort of stuff.
Why would you bring my dad into this?
And then when it comes to their families, whether it's in something as simple as Walmart, a white man tries to control and put their dominance on. Yeah.
Number 9. At this point in the video, Connor is taking a fat phobia bias survey or a fat bias survey, and he says this.
A fat person is the president of the United States, so I'm going to say fat people can very much be industrious.
Now, we don't have time to unpack all of that.
Number 10.
It's just a good visual of sort of what fat acceptance is about.
What does it mean? Number 11. Here she comes. Look, everybody, it's Melanie Thatcher.
If she was able to press the Iron Lady, I knew she would be able to speak honestly about fat acceptance.
What does it mean? It's a joke, y'all. You don't have to yell at me in the comments. I know who she is. I know. It's Tuppence Threepwood, your prime minister. I know who she is. Number 12.
Yeah. You know, or is in proportion. Some are pear-shaped, apple-shaped, or banana-shaped, or whatever.
Oh, banana.
Number 13. As so many people who get wrapped up in this fitness weirdo, I dislike fat activism, men's rights, etc. people seem to be, Connor's got super deep concerns about reduced fertility. So this is a section where he is listing different fat-related diseases, which he does not put down to anything, but sure, why should he do any research? So he lists reduced fertility here twice, which I thought was interesting, considering what he says later.
Lorna stated her weight would reduce her chances of having children. Surely that's not the message we want to send to kids.
And I just was wondering, you talk to kids a lot about reduced fertility? Is that something you're chatting with the young about? Because I've got nieces and nephews, and we don't generally talk about that. But I don't know your life. Maybe you do. Number 14.
Fat acceptance was a well-guarded community in which slim white guys couldn't enter.
Number 15. So right at the beginning of the video, he does this fake out credits sequence. And I was like, oh, indeed, the puns of a child. I was also relieved to find out that he does apparently know that the Star Spangled Banner is not the British national anthem. And then I noticed something else. Daddy Jonathan. Who is Daddy Jonathan? What? What is it? Oh my god. It says Daddy Jonathan. And I just... what? Number 16. I know. The ending is wild. So, just give me a second to walk you through it. Here we have the bootleg hero shot. I swear I haven't heard the national anthem this many times since I was in the marching band and I had to go to the football games. Like, why? It's so weird.
Were we the creators of Fat-topia? Or were we the conquerors?
I've spent some time with this sentence that is sort of, that's how he ends the movie. So this is like your closing thesis or your closing statement that you want to leave people with, and it is nonsensical. Okay, so first of all, you can't just keep using the word Fat-topia like everyone knows what that means, like you made that up. Secondly, no, that's it. It doesn't make any sense. I have put some thought and time into trying to make it make sense, and like, I'm not gonna rewrite this for you so that it makes better sense. Like, you should have you should have written it properly to begin with, and you didn't, because it doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why you would end your movie with this. I gotta be honest, when I saw this, this is kind of what I thought of.
The end?
Oh.
It's a tower of bad decisions. Everything went wrong. All of the decisions were bad. I don't know. Why? Why are you doing this? It's very strange. Only someone who already agrees with you would be like, yep, that makes sense. Because people who don't know what you're talking about, this is not going to clarify it for them. It's just technically so poor. It's such a strange thing to have done. That's it. I don't know what else to say. Alright, y'all. We're finally here. We've made it through, and we're to the section about the fake interview. This interview stood out to me from the very beginning as looking fake, specifically because of this clip.
Privilege, privilege, privilege. Right, I think I'm done.
For Connor's purposes, for Fat-topia as an anti-fat acceptance video.
I guess my film was anti-fat acceptance.
This clip is almost too perfect. Well, it is too perfect, honestly, because what he has here is supposedly a fat activist acting exactly the way that people who dislike and oppose fat activists presume that we do act. Now, just because something looks kind of fakey or really fakey or super fake doesn't mean it necessarily is. That's not proof. But I do think that we need to take into account when we're going through and looking at this interview that, as I've shown in the rest of my video, it seems like Connor has approached the topic of fat acceptance and the way that he has made Fat-topia in a less than honest way already. We have fake footage. We have deceptive editing. We have making up things that it doesn't seem like they happened. We have fake ads. It seems like to me that it could be possible that if Connor didn't get the footage that he wanted, the explosive footage that would make the marketing of Fat-topia into a success.
Luckily that sort of worked into my marketing campaign in a way. They sort of killed that.
That he's perfectly capable of making up an interview because he's made up so much other stuff. And I am not the only person to look at this interview and think, wow, this looks pretty fake. Connor clipped just this interview out and put it on YouTube as part of his marketing. And several YouTube commenters also pointed out that it looks pretty fake. To no response. No response from a guy who seems like he wants to respond to everything. Let's just start at the beginning. I've heard that's a good place to start. As we get into the interview proper, the first thing that we see is a DM or direct message conversation that Connor is supposedly having with this fat activist. This didn't stand out to me at first. Also, it goes by so fast that it's kind of hard to tell really what's happening. But upon repeated viewings, what I noticed is, so Connor managed to screen cap a direct message conversation while it was happening. And you can see that because 3 dots are there that indicate that somebody's typing. There's an episode of Connor's podcast where he indicates that he was talking to this person for a long period of time.
But in terms of the conversation before, I think we spoke for about 3 months.
Somehow, over this months-long conversation, he was able to get a screen capture of a conversation while it was happening. So he's having this very long conversation with someone, and he manages to snag it open and capture the conversation as it is occurring. It's not impossible, but I've used Snagit a lot to make this video, and it seems unlikely. So before we move on, let's take a moment and just interrogate the text a little from the proper perspective. It looks scripted. It doesn't look like the way that real people talk to each other. It looks like the way that people who are mad about fat activism say that fat activists talk. It's all mashed up in a kind of nonsensical way. Because the thing is if you want to impersonate somebody or you want to impersonate a group of people, you have to have actually paid attention to those people in order to be able to impersonate them in any kind of believable way. This does not read as believable language to me. I've been doing this for a long time, and this just looks like if you took a bunch of posts off of Reddit of people complaining about Tumblr and you fed them into a learning machine AI thing and had it spit out posts, it would look like this. It looks scripted to me. Then we move into the next section. The interview subject comes in, sits down. Connor complains again that nobody wants to talk to him.
I couldn't pass on this opportunity as it was becoming clear these interviews would be hard to obtain.
So I think I said before, I showed Fat-topia to a few people, and then I showed just this interview to a couple more, and a number of the people that I showed this to said that they thought, and I had not caught this, but they thought that this was possibly a thin person in a hat and hoodie in order to look bigger. And if we slow the footage down right at the beginning of this part, we can see this hat. Oh my, look at the hat and the strings on the hoodie. Hat, 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 hat. The thing about this that's sort of wonderful is that he didn't have to put this part into the video. He could have cut this part out. I don't know. Seems weird.
Chapter 1. Understanding your tensions.
I want to take a look at the way that this was filmed. What can we tell about this interview as opposed to other interviews that Connor does in Fat-topia to see where things don't match up? If you know what to look for, there's clues in the visuals and the filming that show us that it's staged. I'm just going to treat this like a silent movie, take the audio off, and show you using the visuals the way that I think that this was put together and how that points to the fact that I am 99% sure that this is staged. It's a staged scene, like something out of a play. Besides this particular interview, we have examples of a number of different other kinds of interviews that Connor does. There's various video chat interviews. We see the person, we can see the surroundings that they're in. It's kind of a one shot just of the person's face talking. In addition to the other video calls, Connor also does a Google chat interview with the Fat Acceptance Cringe guy where it cuts back and forth. He also does a number of speakerphone interviews where I guess people couldn't get on the video chat, so Connor kind of just films himself talking in a speakerphone. There's 2 in-person interviews where Connor's actually able to get into the same room as the person that he's interviewing. In those shots, we see Connor in the shot with the other person. It's a single camera shot, and both people are framed within the camera. And what's striking to me about these interview examples that we have from Fat-topia is that each style of interview that he does still gives you a sense of place. For the majority of the video calls, the sense of place that we have is the place or the room that the interview subject is making the call from. In the interview call where the subject did not turn on the camera, we have a sense of place of Connor looking at a computer. In the 2 in-person interviews, the sense of place is even more apparent. We are in someone's room. We are at a cafe. This is very different from when we turn our attention to the fakey, explosive footage Fat Activist interview. What we see when we look at this interview is everything is shot very tight, very close. There's no sense of place. There's no way to tell where this is. The interview subject is against a very simple gray background. All the shots of Connor are very tight. You can kind of see a background outside of this gray backdrop, but it's fuzzy and it's impossible to tell what it is. So the question is, where is this happening? Where is this interview taking place? This interview could be set on the moon. Who knows? Nothing about it matches any of the other interviews. I also just wanted to point out this is the only time in Fat-topia where Connor uses any kind of lighting technique for any technical purpose beyond simply illuminating the scene. Most of Fat-topia is shot using natural light and a few lights to see the subjects and interiors. There are no other uses of lighting like this at all. 4 years theater design, finally using it. I knew I would one day. The decision to shoot the anonymous interview this way is an aesthetic and technical decision. And it's a decision that makes the technical aspects of the filming, the lighting and the shooting and the editing, more complicated. So not only do we have a decision that is made in opposition to every other decision within the piece, it's not a decision to simplify. It's a decision to make things more complex. I think that when we see that obvious difference, this decision to construct the anonymous interview this way, it leads to the question of why. Why was this done? Because there has to be a reason. Is Connor just really enamored of the aesthetic of Dateline trash TV? Or perhaps was it done to conceal the circumstances of the interview and how it was conducted? Let's keep going and we'll decide together. Okay, so let's take a moment and think about what kind of equipment and setup would Connor have needed in order to film this interview as a real interview as he claims that it is. So I've made a diagram. Yes. I did. Am I starting to lose it a little bit? Yes, I am. The interview subject and Connor are like Superman and Clark Kent. They're never on screen at the same time. So I'm gonna take each side of the conversation, quote unquote, as a separate setup, and then I'll show you what they look like together. So for the interview subject, you would need a backdrop and a light in order to do the backlighting technique that you would have to do to get the Dateline NBC footage anonymous interview that Connor really seemed to want, a camera, and that camera would need to be on a tripod because the footage of the subject is stock still, never moves. Camera's definitely on a tripod. No matter how hard you try to hold a camera still, you will not be able to hold it still with your hands. She also has a lapel mic, which she very dramatically whips off to get that kind of iconic storm out scene that it seemed like Connor really wanted. For Connor's side, what would the setups look like? We still need a gray backdrop because we see that in the background. We need some kind of lighting, a camera, but we also need someone to hold the camera because on Connor's side, the footage is all wibbly wobbly, wibble wibble wobble. He does not have this camera on a tripod. And there's no real reason not to have done that. It's kind of nonsensical to me. The difference between the tripod, no tripod, 1 camera, 2 camera has been driving me up a wall. Here's the bit that kind of got stuck in my brain like a splinter. Why is it that suddenly Connor has 2 cameras so that he can film an interview subject and himself simultaneously, where there's no indication in the rest of Fat-topia that he's ever using 2 camera setups? But also, you have 1 camera that's on a tripod and 1 camera that isn't? That does not make any sense to me, because tripods are really cheap. It is really easy to get a tripod. I have so many. Sometimes they send me tripods I don't even want with other stuff. So suddenly you can like swing 2 cameras, but you couldn't put down like $10 for a tripod? That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. There doesn't appear to be any aesthetic reason for it, because you could set up the same tight and close shot with a tripod and it would be still and not distracting when put against this stock still image that you have on the other side of this quote-unquote conversation. It looks like the person holding the camera is doing the best that they can to hold it still. It's not like when people use handheld to put you in the moment and make you feel like you're there. This person is trying to hold this camera still and they're failing because a human being cannot hold a camera as still as a tripod can. The thing about making a decision for aesthetic purposes is that it needs to look like you did it deliberately and not like it's a mistake. This looks like a mistake. It doesn't match what's happening on screen, and it's not wobbly enough to look like it's on purpose. It just looks like a screw up. As I said, the footage from the subject interview side doesn't match anything else in Fat-topia, but the interview on Connor's side kind of does, in that it seems like he just has something against tripods. There is so much wibbly weeble wobble footage in this film. Wobble? Wobble. Wibble. Wobble. And then this I just wanted to put in because I was just like, oof, that is a rough zoom. I don't know why you would have done that. Why wouldn't you just use the editing software to zoom? Oh, and his side keeps going out of focus. This is really why I think that both sides of this interview were not necessarily even filmed on the same day and in the same place. Because whoever filmed the fat acceptance side and whoever filmed Connor's side could not have been the same person, because those people had completely different skill levels. The background that we see in Connor's shot could conceivably be the background from the interviewee side. There's no overlapping in these shots. They could have been filmed weeks apart, considering that Connor's side is quite a bit more technically poor than the activist side. To me, these things were not done at the same time. They just could not have been. They probably weren't even done on the same day. So we've talked about the visuals. Let's bring the sound back in and show how the sound also shows us that this is a staged scene. In the podcast episode where Connor talks about how this scene was constructed, he claims that there was almost no editing, just cutting back and forth between them.
That scene, just quickly, that scene was the way you saw it play out was pretty much we didn't do much edits other than cut between us.
And that is not true. Whoever cut both sides of the interview together is using a type of audio editing in order to try to integrate these two scenes and make them look like they're happening at the same time. There's a video by Dan Olson where he talks about this kind of editing. In the editing software, you can detach the video and the audio from each other and then move them around. I can show you how this was done by showing you how I would undo it. So here is an original piece of footage from Fat-topia that I've not edited.
How in any way does that make you right to tell this story?
So first I'll take the clip, unlink the audio and video. Once those elements are unlinked, I can then move them around and kind of do whatever I want with them. So you can see in this case, I've moved the video forward in order to match the audio that we have.
How in any way does that make you right to tell this story?
The sound now matches the visuals. I believe that is the editing that was done here. It was only done in reverse. The kind of audio editing that I'm doing here, it is extremely helpful that this person is in complete shadow, because I don't actually have to match up anything that they've said to their mouth movement. That's an additional way that this is kind of cloaked and hidden what's going on here. The way that the audio is cut on this fake interview is more editing than the entire rest of the movie put together. And this is not something that you could do by mistake. It's extra work In addition, Connor and the fat activist literally never once ever talk over each other. There's no crosstalk. No one ever interrupts anyone else. Do you find it credible that someone as hostile as this interview subject was supposed to be would never once ever interrupt Connor? Never? They'll never try to talk at the same time? They'll just obediently take turns like a class of high school students assigned to read Romeo and Juliet out loud? Come on, it is not credible. It's just not. Because this plays out like a play, performed by people who are bad at plays, there are these huge brain-melting pauses that anyone with more experience would have cut out.
We don't need people like you telling our stories.
I hope you...
It destroys the illusion that this could have been a real conversation. It actively agitates me to look at this in the editing, and it is just left in so that Connor can make his like blue steel face at nothing because that person's not even there. Come on.
What the fuck was going on?
In addition to the ways that the technical aspects of how this interview was filmed show us that it can't be a real interview, when we take a look at the actual content of the interview, the words that are spoken, we can see that this is scripted. So I showed before the DM that indicated that this was scripted language, but if we take a look at the actual language that is used in Fat-topia, we can see that Connor uses language in kind of a strange way.
But believe it true, I couldn't find my meeting with Jocelyn anything other than productive, and physical inactivity is far more conventional to us than generations before.
As a writer, this language is like clang. It just doesn't work, it doesn't go. And in some instances, I believe Connor is maybe using the incorrect word for what he actually means. I'm not making fun of Connor for how he writes or uses language or for using the wrong words, but the language that is used in the interview also uses language in a very strange way and also does not use the correct words or the words that I think that he possibly means, and that indicates that he wrote this because it goes back to the kind of language that we know that he wrote for his narration. This clip in particular stands out to me.
I think you should just read into things a lot more and then you'll understand how naively salacious you are.
In this clip, we are seeing the two things that are really characteristic of Connor's writing. First of all, it says read into things a lot more. And I believe what is meant here is read things more, or you should read up on things more. Read into things to me says make assumptions. So if it's read into things to make assumptions, supposedly what this activist should be calling Connor on is the fact that he already has made assumptions. So this line doesn't really make sense. And then there's the use of the term naively salacious, which just wang, that is, wow, what a phrase. People do not talk like this. What does it even mean? The two words naively salacious, they sort of are pushing against each other with having different meanings. Naively salacious, like they're canceling each other out. I guess it's not impossible, but as you said, there's a pattern of deceptive behavior, and this line right here, these two lines together, this reads exactly like the rest of the narration that Connor wrote himself. I just don't know how to look at this and say that this could be anything other than something that someone wrote ahead of time. This is not how people talk to each other. It's very strange. Okay, so this is definitely a scripted conversation. Let me show you the points where Connor is obviously reading from a script that he has in his lap. Reading, up, and then back down to the lap to read the script. He hasn't quite got it, you know. This is the look of I'm reading, I'm trying to look up to make a point, but I don't quite have it, so I look back down. And then there's this portion which it seems like he trips up on his own words that he's written.
I think the problem is that people who debunk fat acceptance don't have a problem with you, they have a problem with accepting fatness.
He didn't even do what you would do in a play, which is learn your lines. And if you're wondering, okay, maybe Connor's using notes. Maybe he's got notes here. In both of his other in-person interviews, Connor does not use notes. This is a script. He has a script in his lap. He's looking at the script and reading it because this interview is not real. I also just wanted to add that the complaints of the fake fat activist that Connor has made up in his script show very clearly that he never had any intention of listening to the people that he was supposedly so desperate to talk to.
Try living in a world where you are constantly anxious about being abused for taking up space on public transport, worried that you'll be humiliated by breaking a tiny seat in a restaurant, humiliated every time you go to the doctors and they ask you if you've considered losing weight.
It's all just things that he saw other people repeat to each other on Reddit. If this is really supposed to be a popular fat influencer,
A popular fat influencer agreed to speak to me.
someone who is known in the community, which I do not believe. If this was real, if this was really a popular and well-known fat influencer, then this person should have experience and familiarity with two of the top complaints of fat activists, one of which is medical discrimination, which does not boil down to boo-hoo, the doctor said something mean to me, but is actually that fat people are afraid that doctors will not listen to us to the point that we could die, because that has happened. And job discrimination, something that Connor should be familiar with because he had the clip.
Various surveys have shown that fat people pay a penalty in the job market.
This is a representation of fat activism that is not only insulting, but it's intended to be insulting. And it's intended to discredit. And it's fake and not real.
You're unbelievable.
The last point that I wanted to make is the one that I think is the most compelling, which is, why would anyone do this? If this was real, we have someone who took a train or a bus to get to some place and probably had to sit around for a couple of hours while the setups are completed, because those things never go on time, in order to deliver a pretty badly thought out set down that is 2 minutes long and mostly involves listening to someone else talk at you. Who would agree to do that? This girl took transportation to get to a location, waited for the entire time that it took to finish this elaborate setup, waiting to deliver 2 minutes worth of crappy lines. Not even 2 minutes, because she doesn't talk the whole time. For what? No one would do this. If you got a fat activist who wanted to be anonymous, then you would do what you did do with the fat activism cringe guy, which is have them on a Google chat where they don't turn on the camera. That would have been really easy to do. Way easier than all of this with all this equipment. There's no reason for all of this. There is no human reason that makes this make sense. The only thing that makes it make sense is that it was scripted and that Connor wanted these visuals because he knew they would be inflammatory. And he wanted inflammatory visuals for his marketing. That's it. It doesn't make sense any other way. The thing that's super wild about this is that if he had just done a sensible, normal looking interview that was anonymous where someone just didn't have their video on, it would not be this easy to prove that it's fake. There's this hubris and self-satisfaction in that Connor absolutely believed that no one would bother to check into this. And so he did it the marketing way and not the smart way, which would have been a lot harder to prove that it was fake. But it is fake. Ta-da!
In my head, I saw that going differently.
So, now's the part where I have to make up a conclusion for all of this mess. I guess I've got multi-layered conclusions. For the people who didn't want to be involved in this in the first place, we were right. My conclusion for Connor, because I am 100% sure that you're watching, I guess I would say, don't make stuff up. What the hell? You don't seem to understand how bad that makes you look, but it makes you look very bad. If you want a creative career as a creative professional, this is not it. This is not the way. I understand that probably you're getting a lot of fun feedback and attention from people who have it as their goal to try to destroy fat activism as a thing. And Connor, I honestly can't tell if you are one of those people or if you just saw this as an opportunity to exploit those people for attention and views, but neither one of those looks very good for you. Now you are going to be the person who made this movie. And when people look you up, this is what's gonna come up for you. And this is not gonna look great for you if people wanna work with you in a professional capacity. This is not professional. It's sad and it's wrong. It's ethically wrong, and professionally, it is sad. Do better. If you want to make movies, this will not get you there. You're just gonna keep making this. And that's all you're ever gonna do unless you decide to change your course. And that is, of course, completely up to you. This is not what professionals do. This is not how they operate. And it makes you look like a gross amateur and a hateful one at that. Is that how you wanna look? Is this all you wanna do? Think about it, I guess. My final conclusion is for all the people who watched Fat-topia prior to me putting out this video who never seemed to question any of the things that they saw. You gotta do better than this. The people who this is for, like the fitness weirdo people, the people who really have made it their life's work to destroy fat activism, they're just gonna believe whatever. But there are other people who also didn't question this. And I just would ask you to do two things. Number one, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Especially if it seems too good to be true about people that have a bad reputation or are misunderstood or that you personally don't like. Just because you don't like someone doesn't make it okay to just believe whatever wild crap someone makes up about them. The truth should still matter. And number two, media literacy. When you are looking at a video or any other piece of art that someone has made, there is a process of how that work was made. And it is important to think about that process and to question how these things are made and for what purpose. Don't just accept visuals. Don't just accept certain things. Who's holding the camera? Where is this being done from? Learn about film editing. At the very least, I think it's important to understand when we're watching, especially a video, that someone is holding a camera and that in a lot of cases, these things required setup. Think about that. It's something that's good to think about because there's a lot of people making up bullshit. Don't get taken in. I think we can all do better. I guess that's it. First, I just want to say thank you to all the fat activists, past, present, and future, for pouring your heart into work that is honestly usually pretty thankless. Thank you also to the people who helped me with this project. Absolutely invaluable. Thank you so much. If you like me or my work and you'd like to help support me going forward, you can check out my Patreon or you can make a one-time donation. And if you liked the video, why not hit like and subscribe? And if you didn't like it, you don't need to do anything. You're fine.